everybody, this is Michelle Greger for San Jose City College Spring 2020, Ceramics 46A, 46B, and Art 89. Today we're going to do the slab technique, the fourth and final technique of the semester. We've already gotten there. So we started out with the pinch, we moved on to the wheel, we just finished the coil project, and now comes the slab technique. So all I really need for the slab technique is a simple rolling pin. If you don't have a rolling pin, you could always try an old bottle of some type, take the paper part off and just use the bottle, but thankfully I have a rolling pin. Another little tip you can use is rolling your clay out on a nice smooth piece of cloth. So I like to roll in a couple different directions and keep flipping the clay over. Clay has memory, and so you want to make sure that you roll it one way, turn your slab, roll it the other way. I think I will aim for about 1/4 inch. If I'm going to put any texture on the clay, I'm going to do it before I roll cut it out from the template. And so let me just make some marks here. Now I'm going to take my template. I can either cut this out with the scissors if I want, or I could just simply lay it here. Make sure it's completely covering the clay, no edges showing. And I'm just going to scribe it very lightly with my tool here. I could have also used a pencil. Next step, I'm going to cut it out. Carefully pick up my slab. Because I've textured this slab, I want to try and keep my hands off the texture as much as possible. This is going to be a pretty sturdy mug. It's a little bit thicker than I intended. At this point, you have some choices. You can line this cut up and join it together flat, like that. You can overlap it, which gives you a much rougher connection. Or you can make a mitered cut, which usually looks the best. And I'll show you what I mean about a mitered cut. So I'm going to take this one edge. I'm going to cut an angle here. I don't have to be too precise. There we go. And then I want to cut the matching angle on this one. Okay. I'm ready to join the cup, so I'm going to take my time and make some nice score marks. If you need to disguise the seam, you can always retexture it very carefully by providing some support on the inside. But another really good trick to disguise the seam is put your handle there, and that's what I recommend. So I'm going to take this little cylinder of clay and make sure that it's round and make sure that my seam is very well joined. Now I have the base on my template here, but rather than doing that, why don't I just set the mug directly onto the clay. And then carefully I can scribe around the mug. I'm going to take the time to score. You'll notice I'm using a small needle tool here. A little bit of vinegar, water, or slip, just a bit. Carefully place this on. flip it upside down and carefully join the two bits. So I was able to attach the outside seam pretty well, and then I'm left with this inside seam. And it's nice to pay attention to that area, because if you're going to use this mug, it's going to trap things down in there. It's really hard to get in there. One thing you can do is to make a tiny coil. I'm just going to make a tiny coil in my hands. And I can try and weld this tiny little coil into that crack. A stiff paintbrush works really well, and I can smooth that inner seam with a paintbrush, which really helps. You can see the coils, I've laid them kind of inside there, and I'm going to smooth those in now. So this mug is pretty hefty. It's got a relatively thick wall. The thinner that you make your slab, the more delicate your mug is going to be. And a very thin, elegant slab mug is lovely to use. It's just harder to make. So you'll have to judge for yourself your comfort level as far as the thickness of your slab. You can use the same technique to make a flower vase, a pitcher. There's lots and lots of different ideas. You can check the PowerPoint for some of the ideas. Before I'm finished with this mug, I'm going to make sure you see this very flat square edge here. This is not acceptable. It's not going to be nice to drink out of. It's rough. It doesn't look like it's been finished. So I will wait until this mug is leather hard, and I'll very carefully carve the inside edge of this down. I'm going to do it now so you can see what I'm talking about. But I'll carve this thickness off. You can also try and do with a sponge, sometimes a little fettling knife, a needle tool, something like that. And then I'll round and smooth this top edge. So don't forget to do that. It's really important. All right, so let's go forward and make the handle. You'll remember that the handle is going to fit at the place where I joined the mug, right there. The handle's going to be bent, so it's going to tend to want to crack. So always use fresh clay out of the bag. I'm going to shape my coil into a tapered shape, not unlike a carrot. All right, so I have this nice tapered shape here. When I make a handle, I like to use a sponge that's just a little bit damp. And so I'm going to take my carrot shape, I'm going to flatten it against the table, and then I'm going to pull my sponge downward. Smooth shape. There we go. I'm going to take this and bend it like so. I'm going to take off the extra weight, cutting off this big chunk, and I will set this handle to the side. If I'm making one mug, I'm going to make two handles. And the reason for that is I want to have a choice. I may be going to make this handle a little bit thinner, or maybe my handle's going to mess up. So maybe it's going to crack. So if I'm making one mug, I'm going to make two handles. I'm going to find the place where I join the side, and here's my seam. And then I'm going to take my handle, and I'm going to try it onto the seam. I want to make sure that I have the handle placed in a good spot. Sometimes if you don't check it from the top, your handle will be wonky over to the side. I'm going to score, or actually I'm going to mark where my handle sits, and then carefully I will take this handle off and score it. And carefully, you can see I'm using my inside hand to support, and I will carefully join the handle onto the mug. Make sure it's a good tight join. One little key is, if you want this to be a useful cup, make sure that your handle is no taller than the lid of the cup. Because if your handle is really high like this, and you turn the cup over to put it into the dishwasher, you're gonna knock off your handle. Another couple tips are, just make sure that the handle is easy to get your fingers in. And practice. Practice, practice, practice. I'm going to have you make 2 slab cups, play around with texture. You can always do your texture while the piece is flat. It's a lot harder to do texture when the piece is upright like this. So the second thing we're going to do today is to roll out a slab and slump the slab into a bowl to make a slab plate. And so you can see in this case I have my slab rolled out pretty well. I've transferred it onto a piece of plastic. And this is going to be key because it's going to help me to lift it into the plate. So I'm going to roll it, get it just how I want it. This is the plate I'm going to use to slump my slab in. So I'm going to make a slumped slab plate. I'm going to carefully scribe around this bowl. Slab is a type of construction method that you can work with hard slabs or soft slabs. I'm showing you soft slab techniques today. So let me have a little fun doing some decoration. I'm going to carefully take this slab and I am going to set it right into this dish here. Two reasons for the plastic. The plastic is important because it helps us to lift the slab and place it gently into the dish. The second thing is, without this piece of plastic, this clay will stick to the dish and you will never get it off. So anytime you're doing a slump mold, it's very, very important to make sure that there's something between your clay and that mold, whatever you're using. Plastic works, I think, the best. You can also use a very thin piece of cloth or newspaper. I'm going to carefully press the slab into the bowl. I would like you to keep these platters under 12 inches. It'll make them a lot easier to fire and also a lot easier to transport. You'll notice that this edge needs some refining, so I'm going to take my slightly damp sponge and I'm going to not only refine but also compress the edge. Now this piece is going to have a very round base, which is going to make it wobbly. And so what I'm going to be looking for is that you add a foot to this. This is going to take probably 3 or 4 hours to get leather hard. Once it's leather hard, you can carefully flip it over onto a board. So I would set the board on top and then carefully flip the piece over. And the bowl is going to come off quite easily. You'll pull off your plastic. And once this is leather hard, you can add a nice attached foot. I would say the best way to attach a foot is to use a big coil. But I want you to know that it's important for the structure of the foot to hold up this mass. So if you're going to put a little narrow foot right here in the center, your bowl is likely going to, in the kiln, it's going to open up and slump. So when you add your foot, make certain that your foot goes out far enough so that it can hold the weight of the slab. And so I usually choose somewhere maybe 2 to 3 inches in from the edge. So you want a nice wide diameter for your foot. I'm free drying it here, but you can also find something else that's round and stick it on and trace it. When you attach your foot, make sure that you're attaching it while your clay is leather hard. You can make a coil and make a coil foot like we did with the pinch pots. Anytime you build with slab, make sure you cover this piece up for at least 24 hours before you do any further refining, or especially before you dry the piece. Slabs take time to join each other, so don't rush. Enjoy yourself. Have fun with your textures, and I can't wait to see the results. See you guys later.